Good evening and welcome to Eswatini TV. You are watching a Cuppa with Nomcebo. Today we're going to continue our interview with Gaia Muzungu, who is a recovered drug addict. We had this interview in part one where you heard his story, where it all started. We're going to continue with this conversation because it's quite a serious one and one of those conversations that really need to be heard. And I just want us to go right straight into it. So there you are, 8 years later, fully taking cocaine at work, at home, and whatever time or opportunity that you get to actually have this drug. Take us through that journey.
Yeah, and I think it's a journey that also encourages you to falsely live because it is illegal. And then for me was the fact that I needed it to not feel, perhaps, because what it comes with, it heightens your emotions. So if you're extra happy, you'll be extra happy. Extra happy. If you're sad, you'll be extra sad. So I think at that time it's depression comes with it because the ideal thing is that it's changed the chemical, the way you think. First, you're living in, I think what people would say is common sense. It's not. You built a world to protect yourself, first of all, and it's the secrecy of it. You know, I still have to show front that everything is okay, as we do. But this was the little hidden secret that I had. That you had
because it's quite a lot of work, you know, in keeping secrets, you know. And there you are. You also need to be normal and just be Gaia, you know. And there's the drug. Now you're finding yourself doing it on a daily basis. And you said you have episodes where, you know, you go into depression.
Yes.
Did you have suffer from depression before, you know, the drug addiction began?
No, I not in the extent, because again it did heighten it. Because it was, I think at that point it's become a trap. It becomes like a jail where you know, as much as you want to think about life, you know, the general things of life, of what you dream. You want to be successful in what you're doing. But the idea is that your mind is constantly thinking of how do I get the next fix.
Yes.
So I'm doing work now, but I know later, or how can I have funds to get there? So you start begin to tell lies because you're not where you are. And I think for me, what's also one of the things physically, it's changed the way you think. You know, for me, I wasn't firing the same way in terms I wasn't as sharp. In terms of work, I forgot basic things.
Your work got affected.
Yes.
Delivery.
Relationships.
You know, the relationships as well.
Because I start to isolate. So I'm not as social anymore because of this secret I'm keeping. I can't function at a norm. I'm extra paranoid around people. I know what I'm doing, and so even your general good circle, I would say, you keep away because you know in essence what you're doing.
You say you have that episode of paranoia which, you know, would drive you away.
Yes.
You know, from hanging out with your family or your friends.
Yeah.
Take us through that. What was that feeling like? What would be going through your head, or what would you be doing in that particular, you know, state of mind?
No, in that state of mind as well is that first misery loves company. I think so is the same as users love company. I found as well friends who will not, who are in the same boat. I think that's to put it.
Okay.
Who won't speak otherwise. So you find comfort in them. So it's a smaller group. You isolate, but generally it was yourself. So I would do. Sometimes, because I wouldn't sleep for days. That's the other thing, is like you can't sleep. You're constantly
sleep.
up.
So once you do a hit, you cannot sleep.
Yeah.
How many hits do you do in a day?
So this is the story that is quite unbelievable. I think it started off with like a hit that would last you a day. Then it became a hit that would last you half a day. Then it became a hit that I need every so often. So I would take up to, I think at that time, 8 if I could, because it's also financial.
In 24 hours?
In 24 hours.
8 hits.
8. And that's quite a lot. It sells in grams. And I think about anything from 400 to 1,000 gram of the stuff. So I was spending a lot of money.
So for 8 hits, obviously, that will be coming to the expenses, as you mentioned, that this was a major expense.
Yeah,
you know.
it had started. It's anything
goes
to
up
8,000.
to 8,000.
That's a day. So it was already becoming financially straining.
Yes,
Yeah.
most definitely.
So
and where do you get, you know, the resources, the funds, you know, to
So
support
I worked,
your habit at the time?
As I say, I worked, and that's where I think, you know, I also am amazed because I could do the job, but the money that I was earning was, again, 90% was going into that. So what you do is I learned to shift money. So I'd borrow from someone and then later pay them. It was also a stress because people would phone you, say you owe me, you said you'll pay me, and then it was just shifting money around. That's all I was doing. I was shifting money around.
And what else did you have to do to support this habit? Because you did mention earlier, you know, when we were chatting before the show, that you'd find yourself selling stuff as well, just to support the habit.
And that comes later, much later. And I think that's the idea. It grows. It starts taking more. So inevitably now you can't have enough money to shift. So the idea was I bought assets. And I think, and this comes to the story where how I began to recover, because now I've come to a place where I'm selling my sound system. And it's not selling
Your
in terms of your trading.
Yeah.
So I give my dealer the sound system, he gives me a hit.
Right.
And I think that's the reality, but you're like, that's how you see life as.
And what else besides maybe your sound system, you know, that you found yourself giving away to support
you're
your
always
habit?
looking for to sell laptops. Sometimes also you take your assets to loan sharks, give it to them, get some money, you collect it in whatever time when you get the money. And also, so that's, I think for me it got to that stage. I think when I got to that stage, that was me also recognizing something was wrong.
That's wrong. And all this time it was in Cape Town?
No, this time back in Swaziland.
Back home.
Yeah, when full-on addiction, I'm in Swaziland.
Okay, full-on addiction is taking place in Swaziland. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and when we return, we're going to hear more from Gaia, how he then moved from being a full-on drug addict in Eswatini and moving to varsity in Cape Town. We'll take a break. You're watching a Cuppa with Nomcebo, and today on the hot seat we are having Gaia Muzungu, who's sharing his journey as a recovered drug addict, how it started and how the journey was, you know, for him to actually be trapped, you know, in such a habit, you know, taking cocaine. And before we went to break, I said you continue doing drugs in Cape Town, but yet you're from Cape Town. Now you're back home and in Eswatini, and you're full-on using drugs, and that's cocaine.
That was my, as we call it in the circles of recovery, drug of choice. Because I think with that as well, I talked about isolation, and I think for me is where it thrives, because no one knew. I think it's the idea is with me was again I could function in a sense. You know, it's putting that facade that when I'm out at work you know, and you're able to do report, but inside, and I think it's confusion as well, because your emotions are erratic.
Right.
Because one time you're happy, one time you're angry, one time. So
would you have those episodes, you know,
Yeah.
those outbursts maybe?
It is, yeah. If it's when you need a hit, then of course it's frustration. So I think in the outward, perhaps people knew, but from most people that I've spoken for, they didn't even know of that state. I think for me, it was my secret.
Yes.
But it was my secret, but it was killing me.
Right,
Yeah.
and you keep on repeating that word, you know,
Yeah.
that you'd become erratic.
Yes.
You know, how erratic would it be, or
So a little,
what level?
Yeah, I think it's also decisions. I mean, like for me to sell things. I mean, now you're talking about a sound system that costs over 4,000, 5,000, and you sell it for 200. Or for 400. It doesn't make sense because that was the hit you would get. So things like that wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't sleep in You're traveling at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to get your hit, you know, and you wouldn't do the hit at home, so you'd be out. I always call it out in the streets.
And at the time, you're living with your folks?
No. I've moved out
you've moved
this
out,
time.
You're in your own place.
I'm on my own place. Yeah.
And you do mention that this is an illegal drug.
It is, yes.
So there's also that aspect that, you know what, you could get arrested, 100%. You know, not just you, even your suppliers.
No.
Yeah.
No, 100%. But as I say, it becomes a network. And again, you know, the thing is that you don't see it as that while you're using. It's just a means to an end. So the idea of those paranoid of getting caught, it doesn't also play. And that's where I'm also...
You never had, and it didn't bother you that, look,
no.
One day I could be busted.
I could get caught,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think generally at that time, I think the emphasis was on drinking. So even cops, if the police were to catch you, they were looking for if you were drinking.
Yes, the alcohol.
That for me was not a problem at that point because you've substituted. I didn't have time for drinking.
Right.
Drinking meant social. This was something I could do by myself and keep to myself, yeah.
And you also, you know, go on to mention, you know, the insomnia, because I can only, you know, imagine not being able to sleep when, you know, your body needs to rest at least 4 hours, you know, a day. So what did that do to you? Because that's a real issue, you know, insomnia is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think for me that's where I get to also see that I wasn't living in reality because you're going 3 days. I could go up to 3 days without sleeping because it keeps you awake. The idea is keeps your head firing, your neurons firing. So I would do that. So I was also now losing like kind of reality. I was losing sense of reality because I think physically, if you don't sleep for 3 days, there's something. So I'd not sleep for 3 days and crash out for a day. And which,
So you end up crashing out for
the whole day.
The whole day.
The whole day.
You're out. And while you're going through insomnia, obviously, are you able to take care of yourself hygienically?
Yeah.
You know, as well as also, you know, having to, you know, to eat, you know, just a normal living, you know.
No, you're eating.
Habits,
You never feel hungry, so you eat. I think I was eating like fat cakes. It was just to put. Sometimes you would know I have to eat because I haven't eaten in 2 days, you know. Although you don't feel that, that's what the drug does. It's just it keeps you feeling that you can keep moving.
You're just
You keep
constantly
moving. You have to move.
on the goal.
Yeah, so you never see me sit, so I was always moving,
Okay.
going somewhere. However, by yourself. So I would spend hours and even hours on end by myself where I could. And there's an instance even I think I think one of my family members had tried to get a hold of me and they couldn't because my phone was off and everything, and was worried that I'd maybe killed myself because. And they said, I just wanted to check if you're alive. They really came knocking in my flat. I was out.
Have you ever been high around your folks, your family?
I think that was also something. I mean, you don't even know when you're high. It's not a matter of what time you're high or not, because at that point when it's in full-on addiction, it is the way. So I'm functioning it at that.
Yeah, you're
that
able to
becomes
be
my
around.
reality.
You're able to be in society, be around your family.
Yeah.
Do you think at some point your family did probably, you know,
Have
start thinking along those lines? Maybe Gaia is
onto
probably,
something.
yeah, is onto something.
God bless their souls. I think for me, I'm so, and I appreciate the values taught earlier, and it comes to play because I think in essence there was always that respect. I didn't have the general. I was always angry, and they couldn't understand that. But
Angry towards them?
it's never been part of my family. So I think for them was also a new, and they thought well of me to not think that. They knew something was wrong, and I think my mother, God rest her soul, was always concerned because there was no joy in my life. I was always just depressed. I was always angry. I was always, and I think that was always a worry about me, So I see how they couldn't also see it. It's a well-kept secret.
A very well kept secret,
Yes,
I must say, because you mentioned, 32 years of being addicted, of addiction. That's that's a long time.
Yeah, it is a long time. But I think it's also understanding addiction in essence. Addiction is not the end point where I think we see addiction as when you're selling everything or you're selling your body or in that extreme matter, which is a way it goes to, because that's the beast of addiction. It doesn't choose who it gets hold of, and it doesn't choose to what levels. It's recognizing that I cannot live. I'm under control of something. It'd be substance. It'd be an addiction goes on. There's a whole lot. There's addiction to TV. There's just. I think when something else controls you, that is a problem because, and that for me had become a problem because I was not in control of myself. Whatever I say, I can choose like I'm waking up, but my head, even automatically, subconsciously, is thinking of ways that I can get a hit.
Yeah, when can I get my next hit?
Yes, and the fear of not having it because I don't want to be that person without it, you know what I mean?
Wow, Gaia, that is interesting. We need to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we are going to find out how Gaia got help. And we're having a beautiful, emotional, and inspiring conversation with Gaia Muguru, who is a recovered drug addict. Eswatini, I tell you, there's a lot happening right under our nose, and it's something that we need to actually pay a lot of attention to. You're bringing up such an important issue here. Drugs, they're all around us. You may think here you are, you're in Baban, Manzini, wherever you are. It's around us, and it's accessible. Yeah.
I think, and also the idea that it's not stressed to the consequences of it. I think there's a lot of information on how good it is, and I mean, having a good time involves those things, and that's generally sold in music videos and everything. But I think the reality is that not everyone first becomes an addict, and kudos to those who can start and stop, but no one's guaranteed on that, because I think in essence it does change your chemicals in your head physically, so the way you think it affects your brain. So is alcohol, so is cannabis or weed, because it alters your brain, so you're not thinking in your original state. So people will also justify and understand, because I was also one of the advocates to justify why it's okay to do weed because it's natural, God made it, all that story. But it alters your brain because you're not thinking in your original state. And the idea is that you attach it with escape. So you just use it to escape, the idea,
I feel you, on that one. And I just wanted to get to this question. Is it easily accessible? Are these drugs easily accessible in the country?
Yes, I believe they are. First of all, I think with growing up as well. I think you only find out even to the severity of how illegal it is in terms of weed. It starts there. And as a youngster, even below 18, we were drinking at 15, 14. That's allowed. Then I think it's about tapping into it. I mean, I think here less so people would offer, but again, that was us, what, 20 years ago. Now,
Yeah.
now it's a reality.
Right.
And I think even speaking, and again, I guess I'll share about what I do, and that's try help people struggling. It is very well available.
Right.
Yeah.
And here you are, it's 32 years, you know, of being addicted, you know, as I mentioned before, and you finally, when did you get the realization, you know, that, you know what, I want out of this. I want to stop doing drugs.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So it's a beautiful story. I love telling this part, and it's why I share. I think first of all, it's even those forceful days of going to church helped, because this was being introduced to first the higher power of God, and knowing that this is what He offers. All right, so you choose the other way. You're like, no, this God thing is not real. I'll do my own thing. So it's realizing my own thing has got me to a place where, you know, even I don't recognize me.
Right.
And why I appreciate telling this story is because someone told their story. So anyway, because of time.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I really
Yeah.
wanted to go into it. Pastor Daryl
Pastor Daryl
plays this particular role in your life.
I appreciate you. So he's also he recovered from drug use, and he invited me. He was going to give his testimony about how, and I was very interested. I was like, I know him from using also, and
You knew him from using?
yeah, we had crossed paths.
Okay.
Again, but also I didn't know to what level it was. So
Right.
hearing his story inspired me, because he said he was talking about how life was in addiction before he met Christ, and he chose the life of following God, and finding his calling, which is
Right.
amazing. And looking at this man, from the guy I had met like years ago, was looking alive.
Wow,
He looked
wonderful.
free, and I
Right.
think that's the idea that drew me, because I was like, I don't have to live in this state, you know. I can be proud and say I've got it all together, I can do this by myself, but I knew, and it's part of the recovery process for me, was recognizing, listen, I can't do it by myself, I need help,
Right.
you know. And I've always believed that is where the beginning of my recovery started, because when I heard his story, I was brave enough to go and
You
tell
went
him.
to Pastor Daryl.
I went to him
Okay.
after hearing his story, and I said, listen, Pastor Daryl, this is my story. What your life used to be is what my life is now.
Right.
How do I get the freedom?
Uh-huh.
And of course, he mentioned rehab. That's the first thing. And I was like, rehab? No. Rehab. Also, there's a bad outlook on rehab. It's for people who are druggies. I'm not a druggie. You know, there was still that pride. We call it junkie pride, where you're just proud to be there because, you know, you believe it's a place that's comfortable.
Right.
You know, it's something I know. I'm messing up. Life is hell, but it's what I'm comfortable with.
But
Yeah.
so you eventually do go to rehab.
So I go to- yeah.
South Africa and Johannesburg.
Yes.
Tell us about that part of your journey.
So, okay, to get there was, again, admitting that I needed help. We do have one rehab here with Potter's Wheel Church that they run. But unfortunately, also there's a big waiting list. There's up to 6 months. I needed help now. You know, I'd already carried this for years.
Right.
I was just like, anywhere I need to go. So I found a rehab, which was able to take me in Johannesburg. And I'm so grateful to that place, because that's when I got to see also I wasn't alone. Because being in addiction, you also think you're the only one going through what you're going. It comes with shame, it comes with what will people think. But for me, people didn't even care that I was struggling, you know, in terms of suicidal, I was depressed. I was dying pretty much.
Right. And
Yeah.
how did it feel, you know, being in a rehab facility?
Okay.
Because I'm sure there are systems,
Yes.
you know, there's a program that you need to
There's a
follow.
program you need to follow. And I think for me, what was amazing was I went to a faith-based, so it was Christ-centered, and it's introducing Christ in a relationship. And for me, that was the journey of healing. For
Right.
me. I really, there is no George's recovery without Christ. I got to know now I couldn't do it by myself because I have obviously tried by myself
Yeah, and you
for the
failed.
many years, and I
Yes.
kept being stubborn that I could do it, and I couldn't. But there was a healing happens, and for me, it was the community in just being with people who understand. When I say I can't do it, then you found that there's a whole community. So you go through the program, and it's just about finding your identity again. For me, knowing Christ was the most important thing, because I remember going there and I was like, God, I don't want to know you according to what I've heard about you. I want to know for myself.